Howdy there, neighbors. In today's video, we are going to be discussing none other than Malik Nabers of the New York Giants. Is he a little bit overrated? He was off to an incredibly hot start at the beginning of the season, but his production has trailed off towards the latter half of the season. Well, in today's video, we're going to break down his profile, usage, advanced stats, add some context to them, and then break down what we see from him on film to get a full idea as to how talented he really is and whether the public perception of him being an elite receiver is really true. And so when we think about Malik Nabers, he's 6 foot, 199 officially is what he weighed in as at the pro day for LSU. And so when we think about somebody that's 6 foot, 200 pounds, that is somebody that is a little bit bulkier for their height by NFL standards, at least. And so when we think about somebody with this profile, depending on their athleticism, they could be an X, they could probably be a Z, and probably a slot as well. Well, Malik Nabers was drafted 6th overall, which is elite draft capital. And at this point in time, he is only 21 years and 4 months old. That's right. He was 20 years old during some of this NFL season and putting up the stats in which he did. When we think about him as an athlete, he has a 9.67 RAS score, which is really, really good. Now, the RAS score is broken into 4 different sections: size, speed, explosion, and agility. Now, Malik Nabers didn't do any of the agility drills, but when we look at the film, agility really isn't a concern. He might not be the most agile player at the NFL level, but he is extremely agile. Looking at his size, he was given an okay grade. Once again, he's 6 feet. He's not 6'3" like Marvin Harrison Jr. or Rome Odunze. And so that isn't a strength, but 6 feet is plenty tall enough. His weight of 199 is fine too, but considering that he is only 6 feet tall, and I say only, obviously that's fine, that weight is pretty good. That's basically right on par with Ja'Marr Chase. He was 6 feet 201, I believe, and they're actually extremely comparable players. But when we look at his explosion grade, it's elite. That's his vertical and broad jump. Yeah, you'll see on film that he can sky high for a reception, and his speed score. So they gave him a 4.38. It was an unofficial 4.35. You get 4.35, 4.38. Some scouts said 4.40, but 4.38 is a good number in between all of the reported numbers for him for his 40-yard dash, which is fantastic. And that actually, I believe, also matches Ja'Marr Chase exactly. And so, like I said, a 9.67 is a really good score, and it shows that he is a well-rounded athlete. And so I took a look at weeks 1 through 16, and wide receivers was 75 plus targets. That was a total of 44 wide receivers in the sample size. Nabers has run 510 routes this season, which was 92.1% of the team routes. He did, though, miss weeks 5 and 6. So that adds some context. He probably would have been a little bit north of 96, I'd imagine. I didn't do the exact math, but it'd be up there for sure. Looking at his utilization, he plays 26.2% of his snaps from the slot and 73.5% out wide. On film, you'll see that he does play a little bit of flanker. He's primarily an X, but he does see some slot work as well, so that checks out with what we see here. Looking at his yards per out run, his 1.9 is tied for 24th in this sample size. Towards the beginning of the year, that was a lot higher. And some of the factors that have caused that number to regress are offensive line injuries, specifically their left tackle. Interior offensive line has been terrible. Evan Neal has been one of the worst tackles I've ever seen. And part of that was they benched Daniel Jones and released him to avoid paying a massive amount of money to him if he were to get injured. And so he was already a below average starting quarterback and one of the worst. Well, they went to worse options than that in Tommy DeVito, Drew Lock, and Tim Boyle. So that number, to add some context, is much lower than it should be. Looking at his PFF receiving grade of 83.5, that's 13th. That's relatively accurate in my opinion. I think he's been one of the better receivers in the NFL. I don't always agree with PFF. I didn't in the Rome Odunze video I released yesterday per se, but I do think that's generally accurate. Looking at his yak per reception, his 3.5 are tied for 32nd. That number is absolutely suppressed by the offensive environment. He is by far and away the most talented player in this offense. His quarterback play has been abysmal. The offensive line doesn't afford them opportunities to be able to get the ball on much more than short area targets, especially in the latter half of the season. And so that's the reason for that number, at least in my opinion. but the missed tackles forced of 14 is ninth in this sample size. That goes to show you that despite his yak perception not being the best, he is good after the catch, and you will see that on film. Looking at his contested catches, his 15th are tied for 7th, and he does get quite a bit of separation, so you might be wondering, why does he have 15? It's because of the offensive environment and quarterback play. You'll notice a lot of the time here, the ball placement is not helping him out in terms of yards after catch. You'll see a couple times on film where he has to adjust to really poorly thrown balls. Looking at his targets, his 154 are first in the NFL. He is getting targeted at an elite rate. Looking at his receptions, his 97 are 4th, his 969 yards are 13th, and his 4 touchdowns are tied for 28th. Part of the reason for the touchdowns being so low is the offensive environment once again. They don't really get the ball down the field very often, and so it's pretty hard for him to get opportunities to score. Another thing that shows you that he's really good after the catch is his 10.8% juke rate is 8th among all wide receivers in the NFL. He is a very good make-you-miss wide receiver, and he can break some tackles as well. But then look at his unrealized air yards. His 848 are 3rd. There is another number that indicates to you that the quarterback play has been beyond suboptimal. And so if you look, he could have potentially had, give or take, 1,800 receiving yards this season, yet he has under 1,000. As you'll see on film, a lot of that has to do with the offensive environment. And so one thing about Malik Nabers is he is a master at creating separation. You will absolutely see that on film. And one stat that shows you this is for the majority of the season, and in this screenshot, you'll see that Malik Nabers has a 99 open score by ESPN. To add some context, for the majority of the season until a couple weeks ago, the next closest wide receiver was Josh Downs at 89. So he had 10 points on the next closest receiver in the entire NFL. At this point in time, A.J. Brown has overtaken him, but Malik Nabers is still second with a 95 score there. This guy is masterful at separating. Looking at his target quality rating, I think this is going to show you part of why these unrealized air yards are a thing. His 5.48 is 25th. Now, towards the middle to latter half of the season, his ADOT has shrunk tremendously. And so the passes are technically more accurate because he's not generally being targeted as deep. And so you're going to see that quality rating be a little bit higher, but that's the reason. The deep targets, the targets that allow him to take advantage of his game-breaking speed and acceleration, aren't accurate generally. Looking at his catchable target rate, that's 36th. Once again, not too bad when you think about there's a lot of receivers in the NFL, but the targets that are deep really aren't accurate. And catchable, just because they're catchable doesn't mean that they're necessarily high quality targets. Looking at his dominator rating though, this shows you how much of the New York Giants offense he personally is. His 43.5% dominator rating, which is his market share of the total yards and touchdowns, is second in the entire NFL. That's how much better he is than everyone else on this team. Looking at his target share, his 35.2% is first. And so that's really beyond elite wide receiver 1 territory. You generally see a maximum of about 33% by the most elite of wide receivers. And when we look at his target share, his 35.2% is first in the entire NFL. That is beyond elite wide receiver 1 territory. Generally, you might see a 33% at best. And so he is historically being targeted. And his target rate of 30.9% is third. So both elite numbers in that regard. Looking at how he performs against man, his PFF grade versus man of 81.8 is 16th in the NFL. Looking at his yards per out run versus man, his 1.95 is 30th. Offensive environment is suppressing that. His PFF grade versus zone of 81.2 is 7th. I do think he's better against zone than man, so I do agree there. And you can see that reflected in his yards per out run versus zone of 2.08, which is tied for 16th, which is a little bit better than his numbers against man. Looking at his PFF grade on screens, his 53.6% is 23rd. Not incredible, but fine. However, look at his PFF grade in the slot. His 87.5 is 8th. When you can't press him, he wins consistently. And when you do press him, he still wins pretty consistently as well. Looking at his first downs caught, his 49 are tied for 10th. And so what we have here is somebody that shows some elite stats, specifically in terms of gaining separation, earning targets in an elite rate. But we see that the targets aren't generally the most accurate, and we see that a lot of his numbers are suppressed by the offensive environment. But do we see that on film? Let's take a look. Taking a look at week 1, we have Nabers' first play we're going to show here. He is starting out at the top of your screen. He's going to go in motion and receive a swing screen from Daniel Jones. This slot receiver is going to attempt to work up to the second level on the safety, and the boundary receiver is worried about the boundary corner, and it will be Nabers' job to defeat this cornerback one-on-one. The Vikings are going to be in a cover 2, and so you're going to have 2 deep safeties here. You're going to have your flat corners outside, and your underneath coverage here. This cornerback is going to quickly diagnose what's happening and get right in front of Nabers. And I think Nabers is potentially worried about getting decked by this defender, and that's probably why he drops it. Either way, he just drops it, and he just needs to catch these. And so, yeah, I think he just didn't concentrate on the catch enough and was just, like I said, worried about the defender in front of him and trying to make him miss. Regardless, you just need to catch it. There's really not much more to this. And so we will see some drops from him on film. That is going to be one of the things that I show you throughout this breakdown. But we also see some really incredible plays as well. And now we have a positive play from week 1. Nabers is lined up outside. He is running a slant. It appears as though the Vikings are potentially going to be in a cover 1 man or even a cover 3. It's actually going to be a trick, and they're going to turn this into a cover 2. And so you're going to have 2 deep half safeties. This guy is going to act in match coverage, as is he, but you're going to get zone coverage over the middle of the field. And so on this play, Nabers doesn't even really get that much separation, but he does hang onto the ball through the physicality at the catch point. And so after a drop earlier, it was good to see on film that he was able to make a somewhat contested catch. And so, like I said, nothing crazy here. It's just a slant route. But once again, after the previous drop that he showed, it was good to see this at least. Another thing that Nabers was known for in college was his yards after catch ability. And he hasn't really been able to show it a lot of the year because the situation is so poor. The line can't protect for long passing plays. There aren't that many threats on the Giants offense. The quarterback situation has been horrible, but we still do have examples of him doing it. On this play, he's running a shallow cross or a drag. Now, it is a schemed play to create separation for him. He is fully capable of doing it himself, but obviously it helps if you're schemed open. You have Theo Johnson right here. He is going to bowl directly into these players here, which will then create a screen against this cornerback, which will give Nabers just another step on the cornerback. At this point in time, it looks like the Commanders could potentially be in a cover 1 man, but it's actually going to be a 2 high, so it'll be a cover 2 man, and you're going to have man coverage throughout. And so you'll see that the pick play gives just another step of separation here for Nabers, and then you'll see his yards after catch ability as well. And he did get absolutely walloped at the end of this play, but still, good play by him. And I really like, you'll see he goes in motion at the beginning of the play as well. I really like the suddenness. So if you pay attention right here, look at how sudden he is before breaking it in. That is so hard to defend, and it's even more difficult to defend when you have somebody creating a makeshift screen for you. And so, good play by him, good yards after catch, and obviously it helps when you're schemed open. All right, so here we have week 2. The all-22 footage for this part of the game was a little bit grainy, so I just went with the broadcast. It still serves the same purpose, though. So what we're going to have here is a hitch route by Nabers. You are going to see cover 3 by the Commanders, and so you're going to have 3 deep defenders, and then you're going to have your underneath coverage here. On this play, Nabers is going to catch the ball, pretend like he's going inside, and swerve outside for a good amount of yards after catch here. It's a really impressive play, and it shows his awareness of where players are on the field, as well as obviously his yards after catch ability. Ooh, look at that. Ugh. And then and throws a defender to the ground too. Goodness gracious, man. Oh, he is such a good player. Yeah, there you go. A nice stiff arm to end it too. And looking at week 3, we have Nabers right here. He is going to stutter before running a fade. You're going to get Wandale just in the flat here. The Browns are going to be in a traditional cover 1 man, and so you're going to get man coverage across the board with a deep midfield safety. This fade route to Nabers is especially effective because there's only one deep midfield safety, and so to affect the play, he has to go a great distance. And so on this play, Nabers, unlike some of these other plays, isn't really going to get a ton of separation. But what's nice here is that he displays an ability to moss somebody. And so he's going to jump up on the fade route, snatch the ball from in front of the cornerback, bring it over his head, and come down with it. Very impressive stuff, even if it's not against an elite cover corner. And so you see right here, he jumps over him, snatches it, and pulls it out of his hands for a completion. Not the best ball from Daniel Jones, but it really didn't matter because Nabers is just too dominant. And so we've seen that Nabers has been schemed so that he is able to get some additional separation. We've seen that he is really good after the catch. And now we've seen that he does have the ability to moss somebody if need be. And looking at his touchdown here against the Browns, he went in motion and now he's lined up right here. He is going to take the inside on this route, bend it upwards, and head to the corner. This is an absolutely nasty route that gets a ton of separation. And then he makes a ridiculous spinning touchdown where he gets both feet in. It's incredible. I'll show you in just a sec. As far as the Browns are concerned, and specifically with the guy guarding Nabers, it's going to be man coverage. He is going to lose his cornerback and make a ridiculous touchdown here. Look at that body control. That is just so ridiculous, man. And so, yeah, you see Nabers going in motion. I really like the get off the line. The burst is ridiculous. Look at that separation. There really isn't much more to say than that is just a marvelous touchdown. And looking at Nabers' second touchdown in this game, he is going to be running a dig. You're going to get Wandale Robinson, who just went in motion this way, and he is going to run a speed out. The Browns, I believe, they're definitely in a zone coverage. I think they're in a cover 4. So what's going to happen is this outside cornerback is going to take responsibility for Wandale, and then this safety is going to take responsibility for Malik Nabers. However, Malik Nabers is going to fly off the line, and this guy was not prepared whatsoever. And so, yeah, just look at this. Whoop. His movement ability is just ridiculous. And the suddenness in his route running. Once again, that definitely wasn't the best coverage, but look at the movement ability. It is so good. And here we have week 4. I wish this angle had a little bit more of the field so that you could see. But if you want to see some separation, this is some separation. So you got Nabers right here. He is going to run a sluggo where he fakes a slant and hits the go. The Cowboys are going to be in a cover 3, so this corner is in a deep third middle field, and deep third with underneath coverage. On this play, he jukes the crap out of the cornerback. He completely breaks his ankles and gets a solid amount of yards after catch as well. Yeah, like I said, if you want to see separation, this is that. Look at that. Whew, goodness. Way too easy. I wish the pass was there a little bit sooner. I mean, thank you to Daniel Jones for at least, throwing a catchable ball this time. That doesn't happen all that often, especially on deeper routes. But Yeah, that is an example of ridiculous separation. And primetime football as well. Oh my goodness. And yeah, there you have it. Nasty route running. And same game. Here we have Nabers in the slot. This is going to be a negative play. He is going to run another hitch. It is going to be against straight cover one man. And so you're going to see man coverage here across the board with a deep midfield safety. And you're going to get this hook zone linebacker who is going to lean this direction. And so on this play, Nabers is going to drop the ball. I will say Daniel Jones throws this to the inside towards both defenders instead of leading him to the outside where he could have had some space to get some yards after the catch. And so the ball placement for sure is not the best, but you still wish he caught this. And so I'll show you what I mean. So, I mean, it hits him on the hands. He falls down. He does drop it. But like I said, if you see here, if he could have thrown it to the outside shoulder, Nabers could have done what he did in one of the clips I showed you earlier, where he would have spun around and ran upfield this way. And so definitely not the best ball placement, but we do see this on film where he does drop some of these easy passes. And here we have a really cool play where Nabers is lined up in the backfield. One thing about Nabers is he does have absolute positional versatility. He could theoretically be a running back if you wanted him to be. I probably wouldn't do that, but he can line up in the backfield as a flanker, slot, X. It really doesn't matter. He can do it all. So on this play, he's in the backfield, and he is going to run an option route where he could run either this way or potentially this way. And so he's going to choose this direction because that is the soft spot in the zone coverage. What you're going to get from the Cowboys is cover 3, and so you're going to have your 3 deep defenders with your underneath coverage. He is going to find the soft spot in the zone, and he's going to come down with a catch where he gets absolutely blasted afterwards. And so he doesn't drop this one. So boom, he gets leveled, but he does hang on to it. And so I like this because, first of all, he's being used in a creative way, but he's also reading the defense correctly and making a catch when he knows he's going to get absolutely obliterated. So good stuff. And he did miss a couple games with a concussion suffered at the end of the Dallas game, but he did return against the Eagles. Now, this play, he wasn't even targeted, and he was relatively shut down by the Eagles in terms of his production, but I really want to showcase his stop-start ability. So he is running a deep curl against Quinyon Mitchell, who is another rookie, who's played very well. And so you're going to have quarters coverage here by the Eagles or cover 4, and you're going to have your underneath coverage. And so, like I said, Daniel Jones, he is going to get sacked on this play, and so Nabers isn't even going to get targeted. But look at the separation he gets here and the suddenness with which he's able to stop. It's crazy. Look at that separation. That is so awesome to see on film. I mean, if they can just invest in some offensive linemen, specifically a right tackle, definitely improve their center play. And if I really would prefer, for his sake, if they could get a bridge quarterback and take a quarterback #1 overall. I understand that when you select a quarterback #1 overall, you're probably not going to sit him, but that would be amazing if they could do that. But yeah, really good stop-start ability and separation here from Nabers. And same game, this is going to be an incompletion, although that's not Nabers' fault. At this point, Drew Lock has replaced Daniel Jones because Daniel Jones was doing Daniel Jones things. So Malik Nabers is going to take the inside release before running a fade. Now, he's going to settle down exactly how he wants to because the Eagles are going to be in a cover 6 where you have a deep quarter, and then deep half over here with a flat, and then your underneath coverage over the middle. And so there is a soft spot in this zone. Nabers intelligently understands this and throttles down after initially bursting off the line. It's just a shame that Drew Lock couldn't throw with the slightest bit of anticipation here. And so The safety over here is going to bat the ball down. And so you see right here, he is going to start throttling down, just waiting for this ball. And of course, Drew Lock couldn't throw with any anticipation. He is going to throw the ball. He is getting ready to throw the ball when Nabers has already beat his man and has the open space. If he could have thrown with any anticipation here. Oh, actually, he waits a second. Now he's lining up for this throw. Nabers has done his job absolutely. Once again, I wish there was some anticipation here. And so, an incompletion, but an intelligent play on Nabers' part. If you like what you're hearing and seeing so far, feel free to like and subscribe. It's a free and easy way to support the channel, and I'd really appreciate it. I love doing these player breakdowns where I take a look at their profiles, usage, advanced stats, break down what we see from them on film, and add context to everything. So if you want to see more content like this, just like and subscribe. Thanks. Moving on to the Steelers game, he also didn't have a particularly great game from a counting stats perspective. Here, he is going to be matched up in one-on-one coverage. He is going to be running a fade. You are also going to get a skinny post here from Darius Slayton. This is a good play call because the Steelers are going to be in a cover 1. And so what you're going to get is man coverage with a center fielder being Minkah Fitzpatrick. And so Fitzpatrick is the conflict defender here. He is going to have to decide as to whether he wants to help with Nabers or stay in the middle of the field. Daniel Jones is going to initially look for Nabers here, which is going to lead to Fitzpatrick cheating a little bit to this side, and then Daniel Jones is going to go back to Darius Slayton. But if Daniel Jones threw this pass with a little bit of anticipation, I really think Nabers could have housed this. And I haven't really been able to show you plays in which he beats guys deep, but it's not that he can't win deep. It's his quarterbacks can't throw with anticipation. They don't have deep accuracy. And then some of the other quarterbacks I'm going to show you later don't actually have the arm strength to be able to throw some of these passes down the field, as well as many other problems. And so you'll see right here, Nabers has a step on, I believe it's Joey Porter. Yes. So it's a good cover corner too. And as you can see here, if he threw with some anticipation, he is looking back here towards Slayton now that Minkah has cheated a little bit. But I really think Nabers could have housed this. And so he is going to complete this to Darius Slayton. So it's not a negative in the sense of it was good eye manipulation by Daniel Jones. He got what he wanted. But like I said, this is an example of Nabers absolutely winning deep. And so, yeah, good play by Daniel Jones. Those are, in general, few and far between. But Nabers could have housed that, in my opinion. And here against the Steelers again, we have an example of him when his release doesn't work and he doesn't get separation. He is able to be physical enough to force himself open at the end of the catch here. However, his spatial awareness is going to fail him here, and so he isn't going to be able to get both feet in bounds. But he is running his signature slot fade, and he is very good at that against the Steelers, who are going to be in a cover 1 man. And so you're going to have man coverage throughout, and then you're going to have a deep center field safety. The safety is going to cheat towards the inside and below, and so that is going to free up one-on-one for Nabers. Like I said, Nabers does pretty much everything right, except he's just not able to get both feet down. But I really love the way he positions himself here. So here, he's going to get hands on the cornerback, and he's going to give him a subtle shove and then leap over him to establish himself as the only guy that can get the football. He is going to maintain the ball, but isn't going to be able to get both feet in bounds. And so, like I said, he doesn't win initially off the line on this play, but since he doesn't, he positions himself so that it doesn't actually even matter. Skies up over the defender, and like I said, just isn't quite able to get both feet in bounds, but otherwise a really impressive play. And so here we have Nabers. He is going in motion. He is going to stop here behind Darius Slayton. Darius Slayton is going to be running a crosser down the field, and we're going to get a dig from Nabers behind him. The Commanders are going to be in cover 3 right here with some underneath coverage. And so on this play, there's nothing special from Nabers in the sense of He didn't create a ton of separation to begin with. It's just that because of how good he is at creating separation and especially his ability to beat defenders deep, they have to respect him unless they want to get toasted. And so it's going to allow him to have these easy completions over the middle of the field. And watch how he accelerates while changing directions here. He's going to sky up for the ball. That's fine too. And he's going to maintain the ball through contact as he gets tackled. So like I said, just look at the acceleration as he's changing directions. Skies up for the ball, maintains the ball through contact. Solid play. This is just an example of it allows him to have these easy completions because of how dangerous he is. And here we have the play that ultimately got Daniel Jones benched. And as bad as Daniel Jones was, he was much better than the other quarterbacks on the roster. It's unfortunate for Nabers' sake that he had that injury guarantee in his contract, and so it was the best organizational decision to bench him. And so what we're going to have here is he's going to hand the ball off to the running back, who's then going to pitch it back to Daniel Jones, who will be right back here. In terms of the routes, you're going to get Wan'Dale Robinson on a crosser, and Nabers is going to be doing the same thing behind him. The Panthers were going to be in a cover 3, and so you would have your deep thirds and then your underneath coverage. This receiver is going to be motioned inwards to block for the pretend run. Basically, the entire defense is going to bite for this, and Daniel Jones is going to have both Wan'Dale and Nabers wide open. Now, he isn't going to have a ton of time to pass this, but how do you not get the ball off when two people are wide open on a flea flicker? It really is inexcusable. And so right here, you have both guys obviously pretending to block. That's what you do on a flea flicker. And then he's going to pitch it back to Daniel Jones, who at this point in time does have an edge defender after him. So, all right, for sure. The pass might be rushed. It might even be inaccurate. It's just get the ball off. I mean, and so you'll see at the point in which he is lining up to throw, he has Wan'Dale. That should be who he throws to, honestly, even though I, from a selfish fantasy perspective, have Nabers and would prefer that. But either way, both guys are wide open. And he just takes the sack. And so opportunity wasted. And like I said, that play specifically is what I think ultimately got Daniel Jones benched, besides the fact that he had that injury guarantee. And one more play against the Panthers. Nabers is right here. This is a beautiful route that gets a ton of separation, which makes Daniel Jones' miss of Nabers that much more frustrating. So he's initially going to fake the slant, then he's going to fake a fade route before heading back for a comeback. As you can see, the Panthers are playing way off of him. They are scared of getting beat deep. They're going to be in a cover 3, and so you're going to have your 3 deep third defenders with underneath coverage. And so, like I said, pay attention to the beautiful route running, the snap, especially at the end of this route here, and then it's just unfortunate that Daniel Jones misses him. This is what the deep speed of Nabers does. It allows for these ridiculous routes that create so much separation. That is 5 yards of separation, maybe even 6. And the pass is over his head. That is such a shame. And plays like this, and his tape is littered with plays where either the quarterback doesn't see him winning deep, or just wide open, whatever route he's running, or just flat out missing him. He could have had such a ridiculous season if he had even mediocre quarterback play. And Daniel Jones was the best quarterback play he received. It is absolutely unreal. And now we have Malik Nabers in his first game without Daniel Jones. He does see a steady floor without Daniel Jones, but the ceiling just isn't there either. And so we have Tommy DeVito throwing the ball. Nabers is down here. He is running a fade route, but he's going to see that DeVito's in trouble, and he's going to start scrambling to the right. So he's going to do what all good wide receivers do in scramble drill, make himself available. So he's going to turn this back into a comeback towards the sideline. And right now it looks as though the Tampa Bay Buccaneers could potentially be in a cover 3 or a cover 1. It's actually going to be a cleverly disguised cover 2. And so you're going to have McCollum here in the flat. You're going to have this cornerback in the flat here. this cornerback turns into a deep half field, and then this safety is the other deep half with your underneath coverage. And so, like I said, this play is a good example of Malik Nabers working with his quarterback in scramble drill. And he makes a nice catch on the sideline, too. And so right here, he's going to see that Tommy DeVito's in trouble. He has technically beaten his man, but he's going to use the cornerback having his eyes off of Nabers to his advantage, work behind him, work towards the sideline. Good ball from Tommy DeVito. Nabers catches it. Good job. And so that isn't something that I had really shown you yet. And to be fair, the Giants usually don't have time for a scramble drill because of how terrible their offensive line is. But good job by Nabers. And here we have Nabers again against Tampa Bay. He is running a slant. Pay attention to the nasty juke, though, that he does to get some separation here. You are going to see cover 4 by the defense with some underneath coverage. And so he's going to find himself essentially one-on-one with this corner right here in the slot. And like I said, nothing special in the sense of the play was only 7 total yards, but look at the juke here to gain some separation. Ooh, goodness. Catches, it was a bullet too, in terms of the velocity of the pass. So good hands there. Isn't really able to do too much because, yeah, there's everybody right there. But like I said, really, really good separation ability. And on Thanksgiving against the Cowboys, we have Malik Nabers right here. He is running a slant. You are going to get cover 3 from the Cowboys. And so you'll have your deep third defenders with your underneath coverage. And so on this play, there's nothing special from a route running perspective per se. He does have a good feel for the soft spot in the zone here, but more impressively, he catches a ball that is behind him. So he has to adjust while running full speed in the air to twist to be able to come down with this pass. And then multiple people hit him as well. So like I said, nothing insane from a route running perspective, but good job adjusting for a very poorly thrown ball behind him. And also here against the Cowboys, we have another thing that we've shown on film a couple times. Nabers is going to drop a pass. So he's going to break inwards and stop for a pass. The Cowboys are going to be blitzing everybody except for this middle linebacker who is going to be dropping down to his zone. And it should be man coverage across the board here. And so like I said, it's a decent ball from Drew Lock here, and it just hits Nabers in the hands, and he does drop it. And so disappointing. Yes, he was going to get hit probably, but you still need to hang on to those. And one final play here against the Cowboys. Nabers is going to take an outside release on a fade. The Cowboys, I believe, are in cover 4. And so you would have 4 deep quarters right here with your underneath coverage. And so on this play, like I said, Nabers makes a remarkable catch, but it is made more difficult by the fact that he bobbles it to begin with. And it's a decent pass too. And so he doesn't have a ton of separation, but he does have a step. And so he's going to sky for the ball. He is going to bobble it, but look at how he gets both feet down on the sideline. Really, I cannot overstate how amazing his body control is in the air. And his spatial awareness too. Beautiful play by Nabers. And here against the Saints, Nabers is lined up at the bottom of your screen. He is running another fade. The Saints are either in a cover 1 man or a cover 2 man. I say that because this safety plays a little bit shallow, but this safety plays as if he's in this deep half. So I would lean towards cover 2 man here. It's like I said, you'll have man coverage throughout. On this play, Nabers has a step on the defender. It is an underthrown ball by Drew Lock here. And so watch Nabers come back to the ball, sky high for it, and get the ball all the way down to the 1. He was quite unlucky that he didn't score. And so as you can see, he has a step on the corner. If this ball is ahead of him, and obviously with a catchable target, there's a chance he scores. But watch as he adjusts to the ball, puts the defender behind him, skies up for it, and comes down with it. Good adjustment in the air by Nabers. And so, yeah, good stuff. Nabers is one of the better fade route runners in the NFL already. That was his absolute calling card, especially from the slot in college. And here we have something that we've been waiting to see on film and then that we saw a lot of in college is yards after catch ability. Here he's going to run a little hitch. The Saints are going to be in an interesting coverage. So it's going to be a cover 3, but not your traditional cover 3. You're going to have these two safeties on deep thirds on the outsides, and then you're going to have the middle linebacker in his own deep third, and you're going to have your underneath coverage. And you're going to have your flat and your flat. And so on this play, watch what Nabers does after the catch here. It's ridiculous. And so he stops, gets the ball, breaks one tackle, spins out of another, jukes out 3 people right there, make it 4. And by the time he's done that, there's obviously everybody else from the backside has caught up to him. And so he does get tackled eventually. But this is the stuff that we saw from him in college and what, assuming they get even mediocre quarterback play, and if they can really just improve the right tackle and a lot of the interior of their offensive line and get their left tackle back from injury, we are going to see a lot more of what we saw in this play from Malik Nabers. And we are now on our 4th quarterback in Tim Boyle. Drew Lock was hurt during this game. Here we have Malik Nabers running his patented slot fade. He is going to absolutely win this route. He has a step on the defender. It's not really an underthrown ball. It is put where only Nabers can get it in the back corner, or the front corner rather, of the end zone. And so I really like the pass. Tim Boyle, say what you want about him. In my opinion, he is the second best quarterback the Giants have started. And for once, Nabers was finally allowed to score a touchdown here. And so what we're going to get is cover 0 from the defense. And so you're going to have straight man coverage here. And then you're going to have everybody in the middle here blitzing. And you're going to get a free rusher off this side. And so what does Tim Boyle do here? He throws with some anticipation. Something that none of the other quarterbacks, even Daniel Jones, really ever do. And so what do you get when you throw with anticipation? You get rewarded sometimes with positive plays. And Nabers is, like I said, one of the better, if not, in my opinion, the best slot fade route runner in the NFL. And so he bursts off the line, has a step to potentially 2, throws up his hand, adjusts for the ball, tracks it, goes up, gets it, and gets both feet down in the front corner of the end zone. And so when we look at Tim Boyle, he sees that there's a free rusher. And so, like I said, he throws with some anticipation and trusts Malik Nabers. I wish that the quarterbacks, now I can't say that they don't trust Malik Nabers, but I wish that they would show their trust by throwing preemptively when it's probably a good idea to target him, like now. And so you know that you get, with cover 0, straight man coverage. He takes advantage of it, puts it in a catchable location in the front corner of the end zone, and he's rewarded, and so is Nabers. And so when we think about Malik Nabers, he is an absolutely magnificent athlete. His 9.67 RAS score tells us that. He's 6 foot, 199 pounds. And so that's very comparable to Jamar Chase, who is 6 foot, 201. And in my opinion, they're very similar players. Jamar Chase is a little bit more dominant at the catch point, whereas Malik Nabers is just a little bit more explosive, at least in my opinion. And so somebody that's 6 foot, 199 is somebody that with his athleticism can play X, flanker, or in the slot. And that's reflected in his usage. Remember that he played 26.2% of his snaps from the slot and 73.5% out wide. Looking at some of his advanced stats, I really think that they suffered by the offensive environment. Remember that the Giants have had multiple injuries. Their left tackle's out. Their interior offensive line is terrible. Evan Neal is one of the worst tackles in the league. And they went from Daniel Jones, who was one of the worst starting quarterbacks, to worse than that in Drew Lock, Tommy DeVito, and Tim Boyle. So he really hasn't had anyone talented throwing in the ball, and the offensive line can't block long enough for long developing plays. And so we saw that his ADOT went from a little bit deeper to much shorter, and that did theoretically help the target accuracy numbers. But to add context, if you're being targeted in the short area of the field, it's a lot harder to receive uncatchable targets. But we saw that on film, some of the deeper routes, the balls just were not very good. A lot of these slot fades, for instance, or just fade routes in general, he had to adjust to underthrown balls. But to be fair, we did see some issues with drops. I do believe he leads the league with 8 total drops, and we saw a couple of those on film, especially on that hitch route against Dallas. But we do see that he can separate on all 3 levels of the field, and we saw that when he's actually given the ball in an advantageous situation, like that catch against the Saints, he was able to break multiple tackles, make about 5 people miss, and show us the dynamic athleticism that we saw from him in college. And remember that while he does have a little bit under 1,000 receiving yards, and so there are some receivers with more, he does have the 3rd most unrealized air yards of 848. So if everything had gone his way, he could have had north of about 1,800 so far. He has a 10.8% juke rate, which was 8th in the entire NFL, which shows you that he is very good at making people miss. We saw that he earns targets at an elite rate. 35.2% is number 1 in the entire NFL. That is beyond elite wide receiver 1 utilization. And we saw that versus man and zone, he was pretty good in terms of the PFF grade. The yards per out run weren't the best, but he is a little bit better against zone, and he is 10th in total first downs caught. And so, in my opinion, I do think that he's a top 10 wide receiver in the NFL already in terms of actual real-life talent. I think for fantasy football, as soon as this next season, he should receive a quarterback upgrade. And it doesn't really, in my opinion, matter if the quarterback upgrade is good per se. If he can just receive even just slightly below average quarterback play, you are going to see much better results. And another thing is the offensive line needs a ton of work. They should be getting their left tackle back from injury, so that'll be a huge boon on the left side. They absolutely need to replace Evan Neal on the right side. They need a lot of help in the interior. Michael Schmitz isn't the best center by any stretch of the imagination. And so it would really help long developing plays if they were able to pass protect whoever their new quarterback is going to be. And if they don't do that, we may see more of the same here from Malik Nabers, an elite wide receiver that is just being hampered by a terrible offensive environment. There is also the potential for a coaching change and a GM change. We'll have to see about that. And so his target share, depending on coaching changes, especially Brian Daboll, could not be quite as high as it was this season. But one thing to remember is elite players earn targets at an elite rate. You will almost never find an example of somebody that's a poor or even average wide receiver that has an elite target rate. That just really doesn't happen. And so in my opinion, Malik Nabers is absolutely well on his way towards being an elite wide receiver 1. I do think he's already top 10. And as soon as he can have just a mediocre offensive environment, I think the numbers are going to reflect that. But what do you think? Do you think I'm a little bit high on him? Do you disagree with any of the points I've made in this video? If so, please let me know below in the comment section and let me know why. With that being said, if you like what you've seen and heard, feel free to like and subscribe. I love doing these player breakdowns where we take a look at their profiles, usage, advanced stats, look at their film, and then add some context to all of it. So once again, just like and subscribe. Thanks.